a medical device or something which is to be implanted, so for all those devices, they will carry a serial number. Lead time means you are placing the order and you are receiving the order. So what is the time span between the placement of the order and the delivery of the order? That we call it as the lead time. There are three kinds of costs involved: the holding cost, the shortage cost and the order cost. All these costs should be kept to the minimum. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce and Management, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Let us discuss the factors affecting the inventory control policy. A company's inventory management policies determine how the company manages the movement of inventory under its control. So, it will be the company whose management policies which will determine the movement of the inventory in the organization. So, every company has a different policy that guides how and why it sets certain policies. So, inventory stock holding policy helps ensure that the company is clearing inventory stock as efficiently as possible. So when we look into the inventory stock holding policy, we will be able to know what is the inventory policy of the organization. Certain key factors such as the type of the product handled, product cost and lead time for distribution can determine the best type of inventory strategies needed for optimum inventory control. So, what is the kind of product we are handling and the product cost and the lead time for distribution? All this will be the major factors which affect the inventory control policy. Now let us understand what we mean by the product type. The type of product is one of the most salient factors affecting the inventory control policy. So, for example, products with short shelf life such as perishable fruits, they have a different priority than men's dress shirts. So, if the company is dealing with the perishable food, then the inventory policy will be different than a company which is dealing with the textile industry. Short shelf life products must rotate based on the expiration date. Although it seems like a first in, first out, that is the FIFO policy works in that case. So, if it is a perishable good, so those goods which come in first, they'll be going out first. So that before it perishes, it has to reach the hands of the consumer. If at any time goods come into the warehouse out of the expiration date sequence, a FIFO policy will fail to manage the inventory policy. So, if the sequence fails, that is the FIFO policy, whatever they are following, so if they don't follow it properly, then the things will all be spoiled very, very fast. So, medical device manufacturers that produce implantable products require different policy than the perishable products. So, implantable products require a serial number on the external packaging and the actual product itself. So, inventory control policies that govern these products must take into account the serial number of each individual item and track that item by serial number through every move in and out of the warehouse. So, they have a different inventory policy for different types of products. Suppose it is a medical device. So, if it is a medical device or something which is to be implanted, so for all those devices, they will carry a serial number. So, that serial number and on the device itself and also on the external packaging also, they will be having the serial number. So, the inventory management control, they will be just tracking the serial number of each of the devices which are there in the inventory. Then the second factor which affects the inventory control policy is the product cost. Many companies employ additional inventory control policies for high value products. Now, what are these high value products? For example, many warehouses that inventory expensive audio video equipment keep some of the most equipment secured in cages. Only a few of the warehouse personnel have access to this equipment. So, there are certain high value products, and these high value products, they will be kept in secured in manner. So, everybody will not be allowed to handle that. So only few of the warehouse people will have access. Along with having the products caged, most companies require signature from the authorized personnel before high value products move from one location to other within a one facility to another. So these high value products will require the signature of the authorized personnel to move it from one location to another and also from one plant to another. Depending on the value of the product, a security guard may accompany the movement or the transfer. So if it is a high value product, then the security guard will have to accompany that movement from one plant to another. Then the next one is the lead time. Now, what is the lead time? A major factor that affects the inventory control policy is the product lead time. That is, time from the receipt of an order to the time of delivery. So, lead time means you are placing the order and you are receiving the order. So, what is the time span between the placement of the order and the delivery of the order? That we call it as the lead time. The lead time has changed in many industries. For example, most of the retailers' furniture is no longer produced in North Carolina but is made overseas in China and Vietnam. When furniture was made in North Carolina, the furniture retailer could alter furniture from its supplier and have it delivered within 2 or 4 weeks. So this kind of a retail furniture business, so they could deliver it within 2 to 4 weeks. The short lead time reduced the amount of inventory the retailer needed to carry because he could get more within a fairly short notice. So he could get all the products whatever he had ordered within a short span of 2 to 4 weeks. So there was no necessity to carry lot of inventory for him. When production moved overseas, the lead time increased from 2 to 4 weeks to 90 to 120 days. This completely changed the retailer's inventory management policy. He now has to warehouse more inventory because of the increased lead time. Now things have changed. Now there is an increase in the lead time. So it takes up to 90 days or up to 120 days to deliver the order. So now he has to hold more inventory. There is a need for warehousing of the inventory because the lead time has increased over the period. The next one is the cost consideration. The industries and products with extraordinary long lead times incur added costs such as utilities and other overhead costs. So when there is a long lead time, then there will be added costs such as utilities and the overhead cost. A higher inventory volume increases the workload associated with managing the inventory such as cycle counting, yearly physical inventory, and general warehouse maintenance. So when the volume of stock is very high, then there will be lot of work associated with that. So what are the work associated with that? So we have the cycle counting of the inventory. Then again we'll have the physical inspection of the inventory and also the general warehouse maintenance. So all these are the extra cost involved. So this extra cost will be added to the cost of the product. A well-designed inventory management policies are crucial to the organization's bottom line because inventory is such a large part of the company's operating capital. So inventory is huge part of the company's working capital. It's only with the inventory the company is able to earn revenue. So that is why it is very, very important. So inventory control risks affect all companies regardless of how much inventory the company carries. So this policy affects almost all the companies. A small business typically has a large amount of its cash tied up in the inventory. With such large financial investment in the business, the small business person must make every effort to reduce the risk associated with carrying the inventory. So if it is a very small business, then whatever the capital is which is being invested by the businessman, everything will be held in the form of inventory, as a result of which he will have to bear the risk associated with holding the inventory also. Then the next and the most important factor is the theft. Theft remains one of the greatest risks associated with controlling the inventory, especially high value inventory. So when the company has an inventory of a very high value, then there is a risk of theft of inventory. Companies spend $1 million each year to create inventory control policies and safeguards to prevent theft, but which still occurs on a regular basis. No matter whatever the company has, whatever the inventory control policy the company has, it has to face this risk of theft. Theft can occur in a number of ways. A thief may walk out of a warehouse with a carton of shoes. Some warehouses have little to no security or use inside access to generate creative inventory adjustments that move inventory out of the inventory management system. So when there is no proper security system in the company, then anybody can walk out with any carton of shoes. Then the next one is the lost inventory. It remains a thorn in the side of any company. Tight inventory control policies combined with well-trained personnel help prevent the losses. So if you have a very tight inventory control policy along with a well-trained staff, then we can have a very reduction in the amount of loss. Then inventory acts as an asset on the company's balance sheet, although some really consider it as a liability. Anytime inventory gets lost, the company writes off the asset off the books. Remember, a company's equity equals the total of its assets minus its liabilities. So whenever any of the inventory is lost, then the company will write it off in the books of accounts. So whenever the company writes off the inventory, it technically reduces the equity of the capital. Loss occurs in many forms, including the physical loss of the product and errors during receipt of the product. Now, how do we get the loss in a product? So, loss occurs when there is a physical loss in the product. And the next one is when you are taking the delivery of goods, you may miss out on some items, as a result of which there may be a loss of the product. Then, the next one is the damage. Occasionally, products get damaged during normal business operations. Some industries have higher risk of damaged product than others. Consider the paper products industry as an example. So, damaged products are another risk in inventory management. Industries with high damaged goods put inventory control policies in place to minimize the damage. For instance, in order to reduce the risk of crushed boxes, a shirt manufacturer might require a maximum stack height of 4 rows of cartons per pallet, even though the pallet can hold significantly more weight. So, in order to reduce the damage to the goods, the inventory management or the persons involved in inventory management, they try to devise various ways in which they can reduce the damage to the goods. Then the next factor involved is the life cycle. All products go through the following phases of the market, that is growth, introduction, growth, maturity, decline and withdrawal. Now we all know what is the life cycle of a product. The first one is the introduction stage, then we have the growth stage, then we have the maturity stage and then we have the decline stage. So these are the phases in the growth of product life cycle. These phases are known as product life cycle. A product entering the decline and withdrawal phase of its life cycle becomes a very high inventory risk. Suppose the product is in a decline stage or in a withdrawal stage, and those products will be in a high risk stage. So manufacturers want to produce enough units and parts to meet the existing demand and fill service orders but they do not want to get stuck with obsolete inventory. Now, if they already have the order, they will be in a hurry to finish off the order and close it. But then they don't want to get stuck with the obsolete inventory. So if they produce in excess, then that will be obsolete and it will be of no use in the market. Because of the possible financial risk, companies usually implement strict inventory control policies on products entering the final 2 phases of your life cycle. So, because of the possible financial risk involved, so any 2 products which enter these 2 stages, there will be a strict inventory control policy on those products because there is lot of financial risk involved. Now, the next factor is the shelf life of the product. Products with a shelf life pose another inventory control risk. A walk through the local grocery store finds hundreds of products with a shelf life from milk to eggs and meat. So, depending on the shelf life of the product also, the inventory control policy has to be formulated. The shorter a product's shelf life, the greater the inventory risk. For example, bagged salad greens typically have a 10-day shelf life. For the manufacturer, this requires very tight manufacturing and inventory control policy. So, if you have the salad greens and if you have wrapped it in a bag and kept it in the freezer, so it will have a shelf life of 10 days. So, within 10 days, it has to be sold. So, the retailer who will be selling the greens, he will have a very tight inventory control policy. So, medical device manufacturers also experience this kind of a inventory control risk. Now, the next we have the various techniques of inventory control. So, the first technique of inventory control is the economic order quantity. It is the ideal quantity of units a company should purchase to meet the demand while minimizing inventory cost such as holding cost, shortage cost, and order cost. So, what is this EOQ model? EOQ model is the ideal quantity of units a company should purchase to meet the demand. So, what is the ideal quantity of the order which the company should give? When it is giving the order, it should see that there is a minimization of the cost such as the holding cost, shortage cost, and the order cost. So, there are 3 kinds of costs involved: the holding cost, the shortage cost, and the order cost. All these costs should be kept to the minimum. This production scheduling model was developed in 1913 by Ford W. Harris and has been refined over time. So, it assumes that demand, ordering, and holding costs are all remain the constant always. So, here we have the economic order quantity. It is a company's optimal order quantity that meets demand while minimizing its total cost related to ordering, receiving, and the holding the inventory. So, we have to place the order in such a way that all the other costs will be minimal. Then, the EOQ formula is best applied in situations where demand, ordering, and holding costs remain constant over time. So, it is very well applied where we have all the costs remaining the same. One of the most important limitations of the EOQ is that it assumes that the demand for the company's product is constant over time. So, one of the biggest assumptions of the EOQ model is it assumes that the company's demand will be constant. Then, the next, let us see what is the formula for calculating the EOQ, that is the economic order quantity. So, the EOQ equals root of 2DS divided by H, where Q equals the EOQ units. What is the most economical order of quantity units we have to order? Then second one is the demand in units. So, what is the actual demand? If it is 10,000, then we'll write, instead of D, we'll write 10,000. If it is 1 lakh, then we will write D as 1 lakh. Then order cost. So, what is the order cost involved? So per purchase order. So what is the cost involved? So that we have to write the place of S. And next we have the holding cost per unit per year. So what is the cost of holding that particular stock per unit per year? So that we will be dividing it, finding out the root of that. Then we will arrive at the EOQ units. Then the goal of the EOQ is to identify the optimal number of product units to order. So the main aim of EOQ is to tell us what is the optimum number of units we have to order. If achieved, a company can minimize its cost for buying, delivering and storing the units. So if you can find the ideal cost, ideal number of the order to be given, then we can save on the cost for buying, delivering and storing the units. The EOQ formula can be modified to determine different production levels or order intervals, and corporations with large supply chains and high variable costs use an algorithm in the software to determine the EOQ. So in large organizations, they have a computer software where it will automatically calculate and tell what is the optimum number of units to be ordered. So EOQ is an important cash flow tool. The formula can help the company control the amount of cash tied up in the inventory balance. So with the help of the EOQ model, we will be able to just reduce what is the amount tied up in the investment in the stock. For many companies, inventory is its largest asset other than its human resources, and these businesses must carry sufficient inventory to meet the needs of the customers. So after the human resource, the next biggest asset held by any company is the inventory, and they should have sufficient inventory in order to meet the customer's demand. If EOQ can help minimize the level of inventory, the cash savings can be used for some other business purpose or investment. So if with the help of the EOQ we are able to reduce the inventory level, then whatever the cash we have saved from the reduction in the order can be used for some other investment or some other business purpose. Then it determines the inventory reorder point of a company. So what is the level at which the company has to reorder for a fresh batch of raw materials? When the inventory falls to a certain level, the EOQ formula, if applied to business processes, triggers the need to place an order for more units. So when it reaches a certain level, then it will trigger the company to place a new order. By determining a reorder point, the business avoids running out of inventory and can continue to fill the customer's orders. So when you know at a certain level you have to reorder, then we can best rest assured that the company can fulfill the customer's demands on time. If the company runs out of inventory, there is a shortage cost, which is revenue loss, because the company has insufficient inventory to fill an order. Suppose the company faces a shortage of inventory, then the company will be losing the revenue, and because of it, which the company has to face lot of losses also. So inventory shortage may also mean the company loses the customer or the client who will order less in future. So if there is a shortage of the inventory, then the company will face the risk of losing the customer and also losing the order also. So the AOQ takes into account the timing of reordering, the cost incurred to place an order, and the cost to store the merchandise. So the EOQ model, it takes into account the timing of the ordering. What is the time at which we have to reorder the materials? Second one, what is the cost of placing an order? Third one is what is the cost to store the merchandise. If a company is constantly placing small orders to maintain a specific inventory level, the ordering costs are higher and there is a need for additional storage space. So if the company keeps on making small orders, then what happens is the ordering cost will be high and there will be a need for additional storage space. So let us see what are the limitations of the EOQ. It assumes that the consumer demand is constant. The calculation also assumes that both ordering and holding cost remain the constant. So it says that both ordering cost and the holding cost remains constant. It makes it difficult or impossible for the formula to calculate for business events such as changing consumer demand, seasonal changes in inventory cost, lost sales, revenue due to inventory shortages or purchase discounts a company might realize for buying inventory in large quantities. Now, this kind of calculation, so this is limited to certain features only. Now, it makes it difficult or impossible for the formula to calculate for business costs such as the changing consumer. If there is a change in the consumer demand, then how do we place the order? That we cannot do here. Then seasonal changes in inventory cost, then lost sales revenue due to inventory shortage or purchase discounts the company might realize for inventory purchase in large quantities. Suppose the inventory is purchased in large quantities, so those discounts cannot be availed by the company if it is ordering as per the EOQ. So EOQ is important because it helps company manage the inventory efficiently. Without inventory management, techniques such as these, companies will tend to hold too much inventory during periods of low demand while also holding too little inventory during periods of high demand. Either problem creates missed opportunities. Now, if there is no EOQ, then what happens is the company may be having a very huge stock of inventory when the demand is less. So, as a result of which, all the funds will be locked up in the stock and there will be no revenue to the company. And when there is high demand, if they hold too little stock, then they will be facing the risk of loss of revenue or the loss of sales. So both cases will create missed opportunities for the organization. So the EOQ is very, very important for the company point of view. So with this, we come to the end of this session. Hope you have all followed it. Thank you.